Hello guys, in this video we are going to cover some Spring Boot annotation interview question. So the first annotation is add property source annotation. So what happens, by default Spring Boot will read always the application.property file, right? Now suppose in my application I have some other property called abc.property and I want Spring Boot to read this property file. So for that we have to use this add property source annotation. So I will move on to Spring Tool Suite and I will show you. Okay, so here in my application.property I have this name equal to abc, and in controller I am using this add value annotation to read this property file. Right now I will just show you. Okay, now I will just show you. So my application is up and running and it is running on default port 8080. So I will hit this send button. So if you see, it is reading this abc which is coming from application.property file, right? Now suppose instead of this I have one property file called abc.properties. Okay, and this name I will just take it from here, is present here. Okay, and this name is here, and I want to read this name from this abc.property file. So for that what I have to do is I have to define here property sources that I want to read the properties from this file, from this particular file, and we have to give the path where that property is present and where the property is present and what is the name of that property file. So it is present in class path and the name is abc.properties. Right, now I will just start my application and we will see is it reading this XYZ or not. So I will just click on the send button. Yeah, if you see, now it is reading the value from this abc.property file from the external property file. So this is how you can use it. So this question is frequently been asked, so you can answer it. If you know the practical, then only you will be able to answer, else they will come to know that you are only bluffing. Okay, so now we will move on to the next question. So our next question is add configuration properties. Okay, so for this I will move on to Spring Tool Suite. Okay, suppose in application.property we have something like student.name, whose name is abc, student.city, whose city is Hyderabad, then we have student.state equal to Telangana. Okay, so if I want to read all these property files, so if I want to read all these property files, what we used to do is we have to use this add value. Okay, name student.name, and we have to store it in some string name. Okay, so now here I have read the name. So similarly, if I want to read the city, then I have to use something like this, right? Correct. So here if you see in this application property, the common point is student is common everywhere, right? So to avoid these, what we can do is we will create one class. I will just name it as a students. Okay, and in this side, inside this student class, I will create 3 fields: street name, okay, name, then we have city, we have state. Okay, I will create the getter setter for all these. And so I want all these values should get read by itself and should be allocated to these values, okay, automatically. So for this we have to use one annotation, and this annotation is called ConfigurationProperties annotation. Okay, and inside this ConfigurationProperty annotation we have to define what is the prefix, what is the common point in all these properties. So common point is student, right? So here I will give student. Okay, and I will use add component annotation to make the bean of this particular class, and here I will just inject the bean of this class by using this auto-wide annotation. So the name of the class is students, right? I will just give it student and we will try to print it. Students.getName. I just want to print the name. So now I will just run my application and we will see is it reading those values and allocating it to these fields or not. Okay. So our application is up and running, and in this controller we are just printing the name. So I will go to Postman and we will hit this. If you see, we are reading this name. I am able to get the value of this name, right, from this. So it is automatically will assigned to these values, and to do this we have used this add configuration properties annotation. Okay, so now we will move on to the next annotation. So our next annotation is lazy annotation. Okay, so by default beans in Spring Boot are eager initialized. That means the beans will get initialized at the time of start of the application only. Okay, to make the beans lazily initialized, what we have to do is we have to use this lazy annotation. Lazy initialization basically means the bean of the class will be created whenever we need that particular class. It will not be created by itself. Okay, so I will just quickly show you in the Spring Boot suite what exactly I'm trying to say. Okay, so I will create one class and I will name it as lazy service. Okay, and inside this class I will first create one method called that will return string, and I will name it as get lazy, which will return us lazy. Okay, and inside this class we will create one constructor, and inside the constructor we will be just printing I am eager. Okay, I'm just printing this I am eager, or okay, let it be I am lazy. Okay, and to make the bean of this class I will use the add component annotation. Okay, so now we will just auto-add this to inject the bean of the class in this particular class. We will just auto-add this, and I will name it as like this, and here I will just say sys out lazy service dot, what was the name of that, get lazy. Okay, oh, I think I made it private, so that's why I was not able to see. Okay, so now I have just used this. So now whenever I will start the application, so I'm starting the application. Okay, so if you see at the start of application only, I could see there is I am getting this output, this println as I am lazy. So what exactly is happening? Whenever we are starting the application context is getting started, and it's coming and it's seeing that there is one annotation called add component annotation. As soon as it sees the add component annotation, it will create the bean of this class, and after creating the bean it will run this constructor, and it has ran and it has given us this thing, right? So it means that this is the eager initialization of the bean, right? So now to make this initialization as lazy initialization, what we have to do is I will just use here add lazy, and here also I will use the annotation called add lazy. Okay, so we will see what exactly add lazy say. So it says lazy initialize means the bean will only be created once they are needed or once they are called. Okay, so now I will just run the application. Okay, so now our application is up and running. So now if you see, previous to this we were getting that sys out, right, that constructor was running, but now we could see that constructor is not running because till now the bean of this particular class is not created because it is lazy initialized now. Okay, so now when I will hit this endpoint, so what will happen after hitting this endpoint, it will come to this and it will run this particular line of code. So once this particular line of code is executed, then it will create the bean of this class. So this is called whenever we need the class, then only we will create the bean. Okay, so I will just show you that now I'm running this. Okay, if you now you are able to see that I am lazy because now after running this, when this line of code is executed, then only it has created the bean of this class, and once it is created the bean, then it saw there is a constructor and it gave us this output. Right? So now we will move on to the next annotation. So our next annotation is add scope annotation. It is basically used to change the scope of a bean. Okay, by default the scope of the bean is always singleton. Okay, now I will move to Spring Boot and I will show you how we can change the scope of a bean. Okay, now suppose I have created one class called bean scope, and here I want to change the scope of the bean. Okay, first I will use to make the bean of this class, we have to use this add component annotation. Okay, now I want to change the scope, so I will use this add scope annotation, and here inside this I will just change it to prototype. Okay, now I have made the scope of the bean to prototype. If suppose you want to make it to request, then you can do it like this. Okay, so this is how you can change the scope of the bean. So there is one more question which is frequently being asked, and it is if you have some around 3 to 5 years of experience, then you may definitely expect this question. So the question is, how can you inject a prototype bean into a singleton bean. Okay, so this question also I have already covered. If you haven't checked, you can go and check. So in this video, this much only. If you like the video, please subscribe to channel, share the video. Thank you.